for day 11, we're going to be taking a look at Phantom Quest Corp. And it's considered as a comedy horror, and the reason why I added a comedy one here was because, well, if you've seen the last two that I've done, they were very depressing, especially the last one, good lord. So I felt like it would be appropriate to pick something that's a little more upbeat. And there's not a whole lot of comedy horrors that I'm aware of, but of course, the one that first popped in my mind was Ghost Stories, most specifically the English dub version of it, where it's just so funny as fuck. But the thing is though, there's really not a whole lot I can say about it that already has been said before, so I decided to pick this one because not only is it more obscure, but also I've never seen it before. So anyways, with that out of the way, now let's talk about the story. So it begins with our main character, Ayaka Kisaragi, and she happens to belong to a long lineage of Japanese exorcists, and what she ends up doing with her powers is that she ends up wanting to build her own business called the Phantom Quest Corp. So you know the drill, she builds up a business and ends up wanting to save human lives from various situations. Now the story so far may sound pretty similar to the review I did on Nightwalker, but the big difference is that not only is our main character not a vampire, but also this one has a tone that is very ridiculous and should not be taken super seriously. I'll get more into that much later, but to sum up her character is that she's very skilled at doing her job at eliminating vampires and ghosts, but the problem is that she always likes to get hammered all the time, and she also likes to spend the company's budget on her own shopping. And she does have an assistant named Mamoru who happens to give her shit all the time. But yeah, he's a young boy who happens to take the job very seriously, like 100%. But there are other characters that are not officially a part of the Phantom Quest Corp, but do always like to help out. So you got Detective Kuzuo, who happens to have like the worst luck ever. And then there's Suame, who happens to give him clues, but Ayaka keeps getting in debt with her. And then there's Nanami, who happens to be a high schooler who happens to have fire powers, but she can't control it properly. And finally, there's Rokon, who happens to be a giant guy who uses Buddhism for his exorcisms. So of all these characters like to help out Ayaka with her business by trying to exterminate, like, the ghosts and vampires and such. And that's all I have to say about the plot. It's very simple and straightforward. But given that this is an OVA series of 4 episodes and it has a very campy tone, I kind of expected as much. So now, let's get moving on and talk about the other things like the animation. And I think the animation in this one is surprisingly really good. Now I have to be honest, before I watched this one, when I was just looking up random pictures of it online, I was kind of expecting this one to be like another low budget anime that just has very rough animation, but I was actually wrong. Because the animation flow was just really well done, but probably my favorite part of it would have to be the fight scene near the end of it all. I thought that one was just really awesome. And the overall art style is pretty nice, and there is some nice bright colors in here, which I do think kind of fits this one for that it is, you know, a comedy horror. But as much as I do like the art style though, unfortunately I find that the character designs are not really the most memorable. They're not bad. I just think for 90s animes that it just could have looked a little better to stand out more. Although I'm definitely not going to complain about Ayaka's look, for that she does look like a mixture between Fujiko Mine from Lupin the Third and Ada Wong from the Resident Evil games, which I think that's pretty great. But other than that, everyone else just looks kinda okay, nothing over the top, and of course even the bad guys are like this too. But overall, I would say that the animation in this one is actually quite good. And as for the show's music, I think it's pretty good. It's a little tough to describe the music in this one. I mean, it kinda has like a jazz and rock feel to it, but also has something else. And that something else kinda gave me like a mixture of vibes of like Lupin the Third and Gundam, if you could believe it. Yeah, I know it may sound really stupid the way how I made it sound though, but for some reason though, it did kind of remind me a little bit of a mixture between the two. Like I said, I don't know how to describe it there, but that's the best that I can do. But the point is though, I do like it, and I do think it sounds pretty good. And the opening and ending themes in this one are actually pretty great, and I do like them a lot. In fact, I do find that the opening in this one, it starts out sounding like really serious and whatnot, but then like later on it actually starts to get kind of cheesy, but it actually fits the show perfectly. And as for the show's voice acting, if you're going to be watching this one in English, I can say that it actually does fit the show. So knowing that, the dub is definitely not something that would be considered like amazing or anything, but I thought it was pretty good for what it was. Because this one is just like really campy, really corny, really hammy, just basically anything that's just not serious. In fact, if you watch in Japanese, it's still just as campy. So I don't see why anyone would complain about this one being too cheesy when yet the Japanese version is just as much. I mean, at least it's not the same case as Psycho Diver, where that one, where in Japanese, like, it was like drop dead serious, and then when they dubbed it over here, they made it all like try hard edginess, but it just came off as just laughably funny. But as for the cast, though, I do think that it is a pretty good early dub. I mean, you got Wendy Lee, Brianna Siddle, Melissa Fawn, and Bob Preppenbrook, and you even got Steve Blum. And at the very least, it does sound like that they did have a pretty fun time doing this one. In fact, I'd say that Wendy Lee talking drunk was just fucking hilarious. So yeah, given the tone of what this anime is, I think the voice acting works well with it. And no matter which one you watch, whether it be Japanese or English, I don't think you can go too much wrong with this one. So now, as for my overall thoughts on Phantom Quest Corp, is that I actually did like this one. I thought it was pretty enjoyable. I mean, it's not what I would call brilliant, but at the very least though, it was mindless fun entertainment. But if I do have one minor complaint with this one is that unfortunately there's really not a whole lot of character development in here. Now of course because it is a 4-episode OVA I can understand it not having a lot, but unfortunately it really doesn't have much at all. And apparently the creator of the series said that he wanted to have more episodes, but unfortunately they never got made, probably because of the fact that the series didn't really make a lot of money, which is a shame. But going back to what I said before though, I really don't think you should expect this one to have a lot of character development and like all this like other crazy shit. Because I found that the character interactions between Ayaka and Detective Kuzo was actually pretty interesting, and it seemed like it was actually trying to go somewhere, but sadly there was just not a whole lot to it. But other than that though, I did like it for what it is. I mean, it's dumb, but it's fun, and it's short, and it's sweet. And I would recommend giving it a watch, considering that it is really short, and if you just want something that's just, you know, like I said, mindless fun entertainment, I'd say it's worth a watch. And as I said before, the animation was quite a good surprise. But before I end this review, one thing I do want to point out is that a lot of people seem to compare this one with another anime series called Ghost Sweeper Makami. And while I'm sure they're right, it probably is very similar, but the thing is though, I never seen it. But I am aware of its existence, and I have played the SNES game once before and thought it was pretty cool. And I did consider putting Ghost Sweeper in this spot instead, but I decided to choose Phantom Quest Corp for, like I said, it's a little more obscure. But maybe if I do another horror feature, I might have to take a look at it. But with that said though, I still think that Phantom Quest Corp is a pretty fun one.